Hello everyone. Today I'm going to tell you about how to use for loops in the Java programming language. And I'll go ahead and create a new Java project here and call it for loops. And within that project I'll create a new class and call it for loops as well. And then I will go ahead and toss in my main method. Now, for loops are actually very similar to while loops. You have the same basic structure where a portion of code logic will continue to execute until a Boolean expression no longer returns true. But there are a few key differences between for loops and while loops. I'll go ahead and create a for loop here for you. Now this is what a for loop looks like. As you can see here, this first portion of the for statement is usually where variables are declared that may be used to increment or decrement values, and you can put multiple variables here if you want. It's just a handy little feature where you can instantly create variables to interact with. This middle portion here is what you saw in the while loop previously. It's the Boolean expression that, as long as it's returning true, the for loop will continue to execute. But when this Boolean expression returns false, then the for loop will stop executing. And I'm going to demonstrate that for you here in a second. This last portion right here is where the increment or decrement expression actually takes place, depending on how you want your for loop to work. You can have an increment or decrement values. This happens just after an iteration through the loop. So first you're going to have, whenever you first encounter this, whenever the compiler is going through this Java code, whenever it runs, whenever the programs actually run, it will create this count variable first, check to see that it's less than 5, run through the loop and execute this statement, and then increment the count variable, and then run and start running through it again and checking that it's less than 5. And I'll go ahead and show that to you. It's executing right now, and as you can see, it showed up here in the console. 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And as you can see, once the count variable got up to 5, the Boolean expression checked to see if count was less than 5, which it wasn't, so the for loop stopped executing right there. So you can see it's not too much different than a while loop, since you basically have the same thing happening with one of those. This just allows more convenience and flexibility. You can declare your incrementing or decrementing variable right here and actually do the increment or decrement in this statement at the end here. So it's a pretty nice little feature. Now you can actually have multiple variables here, and multiple increment and decrement expressions, and even a more detailed Boolean expression, which I'll show you here. And here, now you see I have two int variables that I've declared. I just have them separated by a comma, still within this first statement, and I have two of them here that I'm going to use. One's going to start out at 0 and the other one's going to start out at 10. And I also have I have this Boolean expression here that's a little more detailed. Make sure that num A is less than 5 and num B is greater than 0. It will never reach this point, but I have it here just to show you that you can make these Boolean expressions a little more detailed if you want to. And here I have num A and num B being incremented and decremented. So num A is going to start out at 0 and increment 1, 2, 3, and num B is going to start out at 10 and continually decrease. And I'll go ahead and demonstrate that for you here. See? As you can see here, it showed where they both started out. This statement prints out the current status of num A, and this statement prints out the current status of num B. Num A starts at 0, and then 1, then 2, and 3, and then 4. And then once it gets to 5, it checks this Boolean expression to make sure that it's less than 5, and it's not. So this returns false. Num B at the time is still greater than 0, and although this returns true, this whole expression here has the AND operator in it. So both of these need to return true for the entire Boolean expression to return true, but only one of them's true, so it returns false and the for loop stops executing. And you can see here the status of num B starts out at 10 and 9, then 8, and then it goes down to 6, and that's the last value that we see of it. It actually technically gets to 5, but we don't actually get to see that because the Boolean expression wasn't satisfied. So that's pretty much your basics on how for loops work. Hope you liked the video. Thank you.